Have you ever felt like a fraud when calling yourself a business owner? Like someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Who do you think you are to run a business?" Have you ever hesitated to post about your services because you're worried people would judge you or think you are not qualified enough? Have you ever been on a discovery call and thought, "Why should this person pay me for my consulting or for my coaching when there are so many other consultants out there who are more experienced, more credentialed, and more successful?" Or maybe you've convinced yourself that any success you've had was just luck, that you don't really deserve it, that eventually everyone will figure out that you don't actually know what you're doing. If any of this sounds familiar, this video will give you strategies and insights on how you can mitigate that feeling, how you can work on your limiting beliefs, and how you can stop self-sabotaging yourself. So let's talk about what imposter syndrome actually is, why it happens to early stage entrepreneurs, especially, and most importantly, what to do about it. First, let's define what we are actually dealing with. Imposter syndrome was first identified in 1978 by two psychologists. They were studying high-achieving women and found something fascinating. They found that despite clear evidence of their competence, their degrees, their awards, their promotions, these women believed they were intellectual frauds. They thought they'd somehow tricked everyone into thinking they were smart or capable, and they lived in constant fear of being found out. Nowadays, the words imposter syndrome are not just used in relation to women, but to people of all genders, ages, and backgrounds. But the word syndrome makes me cringe a little bit because it makes sound like a disease or some kind of disorder. So I prefer to call it an internal voice. It's that nagging voice in your head telling you you're not good enough, you're just got lucky, you don't deserve this, no one's gonna work out, everyone else knows more than you, you're going to be exposed as a fraud. And here is what's wild. Up to 82% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. But for early stage consultants specifically, imposter syndrome can be particularly intense. As a service provider, especially as a consultant, as an advisor, as a fractional specialist, as a coach, your entire business model is based on your positioning yourself as an expert, as someone who has that knowledge, experience, or skills that others don't have, and that people are willing to pay for. That's a vulnerable position to be in, especially when you're just starting out. Let me share some of the thoughts I had in my first year when I started, and I know many of you have had similar thoughts. Who am I to charge people for this kind of service? I think I'm still figuring things out myself. How can I help others when I don't have it all figured out myself first? There are consultants with way more credentials than me, with way more experience than me, who have been doing this for years. What if my client doesn't get results? And this was a huge one for me. I'd worry, what if I take their money and can't actually help them? What if they realize I'm not as good as they thought? Does it sound familiar? And here is what makes imposter syndrome so dangerous. For early stage entrepreneurs who provide consulting or coaching or some kind of expertise service, it directly impacts your ability to build your business. When you feel like an imposter, you hesitate to put yourself out there on social media, you hesitate to post different ideas and thoughts, you hesitate to charge reasonable prices, and you actually undercharge. You over-deliver to the point of exhaustion, trying to prove your worth. You avoid sales conversations because you're afraid they'll see through you and potentially don't want to apply for your service. You don't apply for speaking opportunities or for podcast interviews. You stay small instead of stepping into your expertise. In other words, imposter syndrome keeps you hiding when your business needs you to be visible. There are three main reasons. Reason one is perfectionism. When you hold yourself to really high, even unreasonably high standards, you will always feel like you are falling short because perfection is impossible. It's just something you can never achieve. I see this with clients all the time. They say, "Anna, can you review my proposal?" A week later, ask where it is, and they're still tweaking fonts and wording and still redoing it for the fifth time. But you have to remember, while you are still trying to refine those little things, someone is trying to get the client that you could have gotten. You need to constantly remind yourself that whenever you start something, you are going to look stupid. You're going to look weird. People will probably judge you. Things probably will not work out and will probably fail more times than you can imagine. But the whole point of starting is not about being perfect. The whole point of starting is just to start, because the momentum is built through taking the first step and then continue with action. The second reason is social comparison. We live in the age of social media where everyone is showing their highlight reel. I always say, when I post a lot on LinkedIn, pretty much daily, and I say, when you scroll through the feed, you will see top 1% of people in the world posting about 1% of their life. Meanwhile, you, in the era of build, in the era of struggle, in the era of figuring it out and trying at least just to validate your offer with the market and have few sales. And that comparison makes you feel like you're behind, like everyone else has figured it out except you. Many people don't talk about their failures and their lessons along the way and how they struggled and how difficult it was for them at the start. So I would highly encourage you to dig deeper in the content of the person you're following and read some of their stuff they posted initially when they were just starting out. Another thing that helps is to switch off your newsfeed notification and be intentional with who you read, what content you consume, who you follow. Because the problem with comparison is that very often you're comparing your first chapter to someone's 12th or 14th or even 20th chapter. You can't just be doing the first year in business and comparing yourself to Cody Sanchez, Alex Hormozi, and Dan Martell. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be reasonable. You have to pull yourself back out of the comparison bias all the time. And the third reason for imposter syndrome is being new to the process. You are new. You don't have decades of experience building that business. You haven't worked with hundreds of clients yet. But being new doesn't mean you can't help people. Being you doesn't mean you are incapable. Being you doesn't mean you don't have value to offer. It just means you are at the beginning of your journey. The problem is we expect ourselves to show up with the confidence and expertise of someone who's been doing it for 20 years, and that's just not realistic. Another thing that I always say to my clients when we try to find their competitive edge and build their offer is that you don't have to be 10 out of 10 in what you coach or consult in, because you can be 5 or 6 out of 10 and coach people who are 2 or 3 out of 10. You don't have to be an absolute expert. You just need to be a few steps ahead of your prospect in that particular matter that you consult or coach them on. You just need to have proven evidence of the results you have achieved so far that you can help them achieve too. The people who achieve much bigger results won't come to you for that, and that's okay. That is not your client then. You just go with the stage where you are right now. Now I want to share some brilliant work by Dr. Valerie Young. If you haven't watched her TED Talk on imposter syndrome, I highly recommend you do that. I'll put the link in the description below. Dr. Young identified 5 competence types, 5 patterns of thinking that fuel that imposter syndrome. Type 1, the perfectionist. The perfectionist sets excessively high goals and beats themselves up for any mistake or imperfection. This is how it might look for you in your early days of business. You're not sending your first business proposal until every detail is perfect. Editing your DM 6 times before pressing a send button. Feeling like a failure if a client doesn't get 100% perfect results. Being unable to celebrate wins because you're focused on what could have been better. The perfectionist never feels ready. Type 2, the expert. The expert never feels like they know everything. They are constantly seeking more training, more certification, more credentials before they feel qualified and start taking action. They're taking course after course before they start the business process itself of selling their service. They're getting another certification just in case. They're feeling like they need to know everything before they can help anyone. They're avoiding sales conversations because what if they ask me something that I don't know? The expert is always preparing but never starting. Is always trying to find clarity through thinking, rather than through action. Type number 3, the soloist. The soloist believes that asking for help proves incompetence. They think they should be able to figure everything out on their own. This is how it might look for you in your early days of your business. You are refusing to hire a business coach or a mentor that will help you get there faster. You are struggling alone instead of asking for support. You're feeling ashamed when you need to look something up or ask for advice. Thinking real coaches don't need help and real consultants don't need someone to consult them on as well. The soloist suffers in silence and is sabotaging their progress by not reaching out for help. Type number 4, the natural genius. The natural genius expects to be good at things immediately without effort. If they have to work hard at something, they feel like a failure. That was actually me to a huge extent. This might look like expecting your first discovery call to be perfect, expecting to sign a client from the first discovery call, feeling like a fraud when you struggle with a new skill, comparing your beginning to someone else's 25th chapter, giving up quickly when something doesn't come naturally, or trying to beat yourself up. And type 5, the super person. The super person pushes themselves to excel every day, everywhere, with everyone. They are trying to be on every social media platform, they're trying to over deliver to the point of exhaustion. They're saying yes to every opportunity instead of being selective. They're feeling guilty for setting boundaries. The super person burns out quickly, constantly feels overwhelmed and tired. Now, which one of those resonated with you the most? You might see yourself in one, or you might see yourself in multiple types. Most people are a combination usually of major two. But recognizing your pattern is the first step to then choosing the right strategy that will help you to mitigate that pattern. All right, so now when we understand what imposter syndrome is and why it happens, let's talk about what to do about it. Here are 5 strategies that have worked for me and my clients I work with. And it is a training, it's a practice. It can't happen overnight because it's a mindset shift. Strategy number 1, reframe the thoughts. Every time you hear that imposter voice, I want you to do something specific. First, acknowledge it and say, oh, here is that voice again. And you can just say it silently in your head. Then thank it. Thank you, voice, for keeping me safe. Because what happens actually is that inner voice is protecting you from stepping into the territory of unknown. And then choose a different thought. You know what, my dear inner voice? I earn the right to be in this room. I earn the right to be on the stage. I earn the right to call myself a business owner. Here is an example from my own life. Imposter thought, who am I to charge $10,000 for my program when I've only been doing this for like 2 years? Reframe, I have 15 years of corporate experience, specific skills that clients need, and I'm already getting results for the clients I have. My pricing reflects the years of my expertise, the value I provide, and the transformation that my clients are getting. And notice what I'm doing. I'm not denying the reality. I'm not pretending that I have 20 years of experience or being on the biggest stages. I'm just choosing to focus on the known transformation that I give to my clients. Strategy number 2, track your wins. Create what I call a portfolio of proof. Every time a client sends you a thank you message, screenshot and save it. Every time a client gets a result or gave you a testimonial, save it. You just need to have a folder on your desktop or a page hopefully with testimonials. This is your proof that what you do is working. Strategy number 3, normalize struggle and failure. Mistakes don't mean you're a fraud. They mean you're human, and they mean that you're doing something that's relatively new to you. Not knowing something doesn't mean you are unqualified. It means you're just still figuring it out. Having a client who doesn't get results doesn't mean you are a bad professional, because it always takes two to tango. It is not just about you as a guy, it is also about them as a client. I want you to normalize this. Even the most successful coaches in the world don't have 100% success rate. They don't know everything. They make mistakes, they have bad days. It's just a process. You will then eventually get better with qualifying who you want to work with, who is your ideal client, and this will potentially eventually improve your success rate. Strategy number 4, redefine competence. There is such thing called Socratic ignorance. Socratic ignorance means knowing that you don't know everything and being humble about it. It is captured by the well-known statement, I know only one thing, that I know nothing. Paradoxically, Socratic ignorance is also referred to as Socratic wisdom. I think it is important to be confident about the knowledge you have that people come to you for and the things that you consult a coach on. But I also think it is super important to remember that you are an eternal student. There will always be things that you don't know. There will always be things and changes, especially in modern life, that changes so fast that you still need to learn and figure it out. And that is okay. And that is the whole point of life, to constantly and continuously grow. And that is why I think it's so important to constantly elevate yourself and have mentors, have coaches, have masterminds, and learn from books, podcasts. challenging conversations with smart people who are a few steps ahead. And strategy number 5, know what to share and where. Here is something important. While it's valuable to acknowledge your imposter syndrome privately or with a trusted mentor, I don't recommend announcing it to the public or in professional settings or with your clients. I've heard early stage entrepreneurs say things like, I'm so nervous, I feel like such an imposter today, before giving a presentation or being in the room with potential clients. I know you're trying to release tension or be vulnerable and real, but those disclaimers will backfire on you. Your clients need to have confidence in you. When you announce your insecurity, you're undermining their trust. Be authentic, yes, but be strategic about what you share and where. Save the imposter syndrome conversation with your coach, with your mentor, with your journaling, with your partner, with whoever you trust. I want to leave you with one final refrain that I think about constantly. Imposter syndrome isn't a sign that you're not capable. It is a sign you are doing something new. People who never feel like imposters often aren't challenging themselves enough. They're staying in their lane, doing what they've always done. The fact that you feel like an imposter means you are in the arena. You're playing a bigger game. You're stretching yourself. And that's something to be proud of. I love this quote from Seth Godin. Feeling like an imposter is a sign that you're actually in the game. So let's have a quick recap. Imposter syndrome is not a sign of an incompetence. It's a sign that you're choosing certain thoughts that shapes the belief that you are a fraud. And if that is the case, it means you have the power to choose different thoughts. It's especially common for new consultants and coaches because you're positioning yourself as an expert while simultaneously feeling like a beginner in the process. There are 5 types of sabotaging behaviors that feed the imposter syndrome. Knowing which ones show up in your life the most will help you to choose and apply the right mitigation strategy. You can overcome imposter syndrome by reframing your thoughts, tracking your wins, normalizing struggle as part of the process, redefining competence, and being strategic about what you share. Do not let imposter syndrome or any of those thoughts stop you from growing, stop you from taking on new challenges, new activities, and doing things that potentially can change your life for better. Grow, enjoy it, and embrace it. And then do the thing anyway, even when it feels uncomfortable. And if you want to know how to improve your skill of running sales calls, and if it still makes you slightly uncomfortable, check out my video here, which is your mini training on how to increase your conversion rate from running successful sales calls without being salesy or pushy. As always, I'm rooting for your success, and I'll see you next week. With care, Anna.